Good evening. You're listening to Adrenaline Radio. This is 1680 on your AM dial. I'm Fred Blanchard, your host for Adrenaline Motorsports. And this evening, I'm going to share with you folks a little bit about a personal project that myself and my partners have, and it relates to land speed racing. For this year, what we've done is that we've made a decision to make changes in the car, and one of the decisions was because of my good friend Brian Basic. He decided that we needed to go faster and we needed to get some better parts, and so he decided that we needed to change rear ends in our car. So decision was made to acquire a quick change rear end, which is an old name in quick change rear ends, a Halabrand, but this is not the standard street rod Halabrand. It's the championship rear end, which is considerably larger, heavier duty. And I acquired this from a gentleman by the name of Don Ferguson Racing. He's well known in Bonneville circles, and he has multiple cars, and he's got his whole family up there with him. And Don has also developed a ring and pinion gear. He made several sets, and I was fortunate enough to acquire a set from him because of Brian Basic. And then began our venture into building a whole new rear end, which was finally achieved between Don Ferguson and Speedway Engineering out there in the San Fernando Valley. We got a brand new rear end put in the car, and we'd have the option to change the gear ratio in the rear end, which was something that's pretty hard to do with the kind of rear end we were running in the car. And we have gear changes that will allow us to change from the ratios that we're currently running, like a 230 rear end gear to a 210, a 190, and a 150 gear, which if you have the horsepower to pull it, that's the kind of gear you want to run, and that'll get you up into the stratosphere pretty much in what we do anyway. As far as Lakesters are concerned and speeds that they have run, we were there and watched several cars run. To date, the fastest any Lakester, that means open-wheel car running a piston-type engine, supercharged or whatever capacity with exotic fuel or any kind of fuel. But the fastest a Lakester has ever run is 384 miles an hour. And that was done by a gentleman by the name of Fred Dannenfelser, commonly known as Fast Freddy. And he ran a nitromethane type engine and was able to achieve those speeds last year, and which was pretty phenomenal, I will have to say. So we now know that an open-wheel car of any configuration will run at least 384 miles an hour. As far as our project is concerned, we're looking at, hopefully, it looks like it's going to happen. We are building a brand new engine, and this week was my week to visit the shops where all the things were going on. I just returned from a trip to Roseville, California, where the Lakesters have been living for the last few months, and it's undergoing a kind of a new change. The engine that we're putting into this particular car is a Arias Hemi Chevy, which is a custom engine in its entirety. You have a custom engine block, basically designed and manufactured, currently manufactured by New Century Performance, and it looks like a Chevrolet block, but it's not. It's all aluminum. And its design is a little different. The camshaft in its design has been raised to give you more clearance for a bigger stroke. That means the crankshaft stroke can be larger. And the main caps now have additional support, and it's called a Y-block because where the pan rail used to bolt to the bottom of the block has been extended down 3 inches to where you can cross-bolt the main caps now to support more of the engine. And that's pretty much what it does. And so I'm Fortunately enough for me, I have one of those New Century Performance blocks. The other edition, which is obviously the cylinder heads, was designed by Nick Arias himself, Nick Arias Jr., and the original design was designed back in the 70s when the racers of the day were competing against Chrysler products, and the efficiency of the cylinder head was the hemispherical chamber, but only found in Chrysler products, where Arias decided he's going to build that same style of cylinder head for the Chevrolets, which he had finally done. And most recently, in the last 3 years, he has redesigned the valve train completely, and those are the parts that I've acquired from him along with a pair of heads. And now the engine is basically functions just like a Chevrolet engine, big block. The oil-in system that provides the oil to the rocker assembly now functions like a Chevrolet through the lifters and push rods, and sprays out the adjustment screws up there to give oil to the rocker arms. The rocker arms are needle bearinged, and very nice setup, and Arias has designed it. No one has run one of these at Bonneville, so it'll be a first time for this new setup as a Chevrolet, but it's a Hemi Chevy. And this is what we're doing now. And so I visited Roseville, and Roseville basically, that's Ben York's facility. And he's redoing the sheet metal, and we had a mock-up block and engine heads and a brand new blower manifold, which was designed and built for us for this application. The manifold differs from any other blower manifold, and it has what they call an intercooler, which is a radiator that circulates water through the intercooler, which is ice water. The purpose of that is to cool the fuel as it travels through the manifold into the engine, which lowers the temperature substantially, and that was one of the goals. The other goal we had is that we also acquired the screw charger made, which is like a compressor, not a root-style supercharger, but a screw charger. It has the vanes are totally designed differently, produces a large amount of air at a very low rate of speed, and it's also very cold air, which is the key, is to keep the fuel cold along with cold air. Most blowers that run on these engines generate an extreme amount of hot air, and hot air is not as dense as cold air, and dense cold air is what the engine really needs to run on, and that's the same thing as keeping the fuel cold. The higher the density of the fuel, the more performance you get, is that you make more horsepower that way. So those are the components, and Roseville had basically had the sheet metal just about done, and I was able to pick up the intake manifold and the blower that was used there for mock-up, and I was able to come to town, and I brought with me my transmission, and I went and visited John Kilgore's transmission shop in Sun Valley and showed him what I had, and I know he had worked on this transmission before, and so he redid everything, and he's putting in stronger shafts in the transmission, and we're taking the converter out of it now, and we're just going to be a push-start type vehicle. And then from John Kilgore's place, we went down to Mike Lefevre's shop to have a look at the engine and how it was coming, and the result of that was that the engine is all together, waiting for the parts I'm delivering, and there was a lot of calculations going on at the time I arrived, and Mike Lefevre was kind of finishing up with the camshaft and the motor, and the rest of it had been assembled. And so we're getting real close to where we're at and what we're doing, and there's an awful lot of things happening, and but we're about ready to run this thing on a dynamometer here in another 3 weeks, and then I can take the whole engine and everything back to Roseville to put it in the car and bring it back home and fire it up.